As for this year, we've seen that people have been crying wolf is here. From this year to next, the wolf might really be here, meaning consolidation. So whether you can be the company that survives in the end, ultimately your technology must be converted into market share. Everyone says the domestic market is a red ocean, but looking at it now, China's exports overseas markets might naturally be red oceans. Just in the first half of this year, only 6 months, over 500 new car models.
540 cars.
You guys are launching 3.6 new models every single day.
So are these 540 new cars actually new?
I hope they aren't. So I think Xiaomi should catch up quickly, and Hengcheng needs pure electrics besides plug-in hybrids. And its pure electrics must support super fast charging.
Professor Zhu, it's been about a quarter since we last spoke, but this half-year update feels like there's much more going on than in the first quarter. Looking at the second quarter and the overall situation for the first half, a structural divergence has emerged, with a cold domestic market and a hot overseas one. And then there's the surge in products. From your perspective, how would you use keywords to summarize the situation of the auto industry in the first half of the year?
Now, people might be focusing more on a car company's sales volume, whereas before, people might have been more concerned with how much cutting-edge tech a company had. In the Chinese market, it was about the progress of electrification and intelligence. The talk was mostly about technology. But this year, we feel just talking about technology is useless, as you can see.
It's more about looking at your results.
Look at the market, because in the end, whether the company can survive, no matter how great your tech or how advanced your high tech is, if it can't be converted into technology, then by this year, we've seen that people have been crying wolf. The wolf is here. And from this year to next, the wolf might really be here. It's consolidation. So whether you can be the company that survives in the end, ultimately your technology must be converted into market share. You can see the market in the first half of this year. The domestic market is becoming increasingly sluggish.
Yes, I think so.
It's in a state of significant decline.
Right.
The export market, because oil and gasoline prices have risen, has been ongoing. Thus, for over 3 years, the Russia-Ukraine war still has no possibility of ending, no hope in sight. Then the US in Iran, the US and Israel in Iran, the conflict in the Middle East has flared up again. And after the conflict flared up, we can see the first thing affected is the global gasoline, that is the oil market and cars and oil. This is cars. You still depend on gas and diesel, so oil. The impact on the automotive industry is massive. So for Chinese cars, looking at it now, new energy vehicles, after all, save fuel and are very efficient. So as for this year, China's domestic market is softening, meaning I think it's dropping sharply, much more than last year.
Right. Based on data released by the association, the entire export market has grown by 65%, while the domestic market fell by about 21%. So the overall growth is about 4%. Overall growth.
So this year, in the first half, we see companies that are doing relatively well. Their exports or overseas market share is growing. Looking at BYD these past few months, it's basically, when we look at the split, it is roughly half domestic and half overseas. Chery, on the other hand, is even more extreme in its approach. I believe about 2/3 of their volume are exports, while only 1/3 remains domestic. So looking at the situation globally, I think that car growth rates, with the notable exceptions of India and Vietnam, are all currently experiencing a slight decline. This means that the intense competition we are seeing today isn't just happening here in China, even though it remains the world's largest automotive market. It's like the flames of war have spread worldwide.
The global market has become a zero-sum game now.
Exactly. Total global car production is over 90 million units a year, with passenger cars over 70 million. Out of those 70 million passenger cars, China accounts for 25 to 26 million, then the US is about 15 million. Japan and Korea have about 7 or 8 million. So if we can't enter the US market, and Japan and Korea are hard to enter, that's another 20 million gone. China itself is 25 million, so the export market left for us, calculating it this way, 70 million minus 25 million minus 20 million, which is 70 million minus 45 million, leaves only 25 million cars.
And those 25 million include other top 10 global automakers.
So Chinese car companies face competition both at home and globally. People say the domestic market is a red ocean, while Chinese exports have been painted as a blue ocean. It used to be mainly SEC. The earliest export leader was, before 2023, it was SAIC, then Chery. Now, looking at overseas markets for Chinese exports, they might naturally be red oceans. So if China's car production capacity reaches 30 to 35 million units, I think that's basically the ceiling.
The limit. So it's a zero-sum game overall, which explains why the first half saw such drastic changes, including the intense domestic competition and losses for some firms. Right, when we talked in the first quarter, you proposed a new concept of new forces, and this segment. So this viewpoint has gained a lot of attention from users and netizens, and everyone has been constantly responding and commenting on this content. These new forces have also made a big push in the first half of the year, especially in the second quarter. Then different car companies launched many new models, including Nissan, Volkswagen, as well as Mercedes-Benz and BMW and Audi with the letter logo. They all launched many new models, and these models have also sparked a lot of market discussion. So what do you think of these moves by the new forces?
So if our topic today is to review the industrial landscape of the first half of 2026, I think it's still about this matter. It should be, well, I don't know if it's appropriate to use this term, but I'll borrow what Mr. Yin Tongyao often says: I'm not holding back. Electric is not holding back, and smart is not holding back. I think this year it should be said that the foreign partners of joint ventures are saying, I'm not holding back. This year, joint ventures have joined the competition in the Chinese market. So joint ventures have finally seen that in the Chinese market, it must be dominated by electric plus smart features. Range extension. Originally, when Li Auto first launched range extension, Volkswagen was directly felt that this was a backward technology, but Volkswagen, which had always opposed range extension, this year adopted range extension. Of course, for their ID, Yuanwix, it's exactly like Chinese cars, right? It also joined that large 9 series, the large 9 series kind of large 6-seater. Yeah, in the 9 series, large 6-seater. Now, BMW used to directly look down on large screens, right? But look at how many large screens BMW cars have now. And they're even adding curved screens, HUD, P-HUD. They've added all of them. So from this perspective, among the new forces this year are the joint ventures. Joint ventures, after several years of observing, should have reached the stage of accepting the Chinese markets. New cars, new types of smart electric models, and then utilizing China's mature industrial chain. By fully utilizing the technical platforms of their Chinese joint venture partners in just 2 short years, they've created a car that, in terms of technical performance and cost, that is price, is a very synergized model. A typical example is the Volkswagen ID we just mentioned. Unix, and then Toyota's BZ series, Nissan's N series, the 2 Ns, we can see that these are already very synergized. Technically, I think it's half and half. And for the marketing teams, they've increasingly adopted the Chinese side's marketing.
Local marketing.
I even remember at last year's auto show, I specifically went to the GAC Toyota booth. Last year, they promoted the BZ7, what we call a model manager, they call a chief designer, and they chose someone from the Chinese side. At the time, they said that in Toyota's history, it's also pioneering. It's just that the chief designer of a car model is from the foreign side.
The story you're telling is about the development of China's new forces over the past decade or so. A concrete story of the rise of the Chinese automobile industry. In this current wave, besides the changes in joint venture models, the pricing has also been absolutely spot on. Oh, it really hits the mark.
Right? It took them 2 years. First, they figured it out. Second, in 2 years, they quickly utilized China's supply chain and the Chinese technical platforms of the joint ventures. For instance, BOSI actually used Gasi New Energy's Haobo platform, and the Audi, with the letter logo we mentioned, used SAIC's own platform. So the Chinese side in the joint venture is no longer just there to provide production qualifications or even half the technology and the most important half of that, which is for smart new energy vehicles. The new growth areas use Chinese tech. And as I mentioned with BOSI, you can see their marketing methods. They've also learned the Chinese way. They know how to throw shade and how to create buzz. So these new forces are coming from the joint ventures. After 2 years of preparation, they've made a quick entry. In the market during the first half of this year, you can already see the presence of joint venture cars across all segments. So to quote Mr. Yin's catchphrase, he always says that we at Chery,
No more nice.
in terms of electrification, we won't be polite. In intelligence, we won't be polite. To use his phrase, joint ventures are now saying, I won't be polite either.
But if these vehicles are truly to be rigorously tested by the open market, when exactly do you think these new joint venture models will be ready for a full-scale public release?
These new forces, when will they?
They really stand out.
So far, we haven't seen them reach the very top of the market just yet. The 9 Series cars are currently positioned as high-end vehicles, or rather, they occupy a specific segment that commands relatively high profit margins for the company. So when we talk about the models that can truly represent the 9 Series, we are looking at something quite significant. In the Chinese market are still the AITO M9, Li Auto L9, and the Zeekr 009, and NIO's ES9, right? I think these 4 are still at the top. Joint venture manufacturers have also released many 9 Series cars, but they're still in the offensive stage. They probably haven't broken through yet.
Actually, there was another very significant feature in the first half of this year, which has also become the subject of many people's jokes. There were so many launch events in the first half of the year that it was like one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner, and even half a midnight snack. 6 launches.
This year has been crazy because, as we just saw, the car that ranks first on the sales charts, previously, best-selling cars could stay at the top of the charts for several years, right? For example, from a global perspective, the most typical one is the Toyota Corolla. Yeah, right. I mean, you could stay on the sales charts for over a decade. Just the Corolla alone sells over 1.2 million units globally a year. But in China, that's just not realistic anymore because the Chinese market is so incredibly competitive. Things move fast, but even then, a new model could top the charts for a year or two. Now let's take a look. Which model can actually stay at the top for even a single quarter, right? So the problem is that the sales charts we see now all look like this. Launch, pre-orders, and once those are filled, boom, it just drops right off. If you want to go back up, it's new model, launch, pre-orders, so it's come to this. If you don't release a new car, you drop off the charts immediately. It's a bit like the stock market, relying mostly on new listings.
Right?
The car sales market has become a market for new launches.
Steady sales periods are gone. You can't sustain word of mouth or volume anymore.
Exactly. So one problem this creates is the car development cycle. In just the first half of this year, over 500 new models,
140 cars.
You guys...
I don't know what you think of these numbers because I
think you guys, you might be worked to death. It's 3.6 new model launches every single day.
We can't keep up.
Well, launches need media, right? They're for the media, and then through the media, they reach the public. So this isn't normal, right? Everyone knows it's not normal, but do you dare to stop? If you stop, you lose your spot on the charts. Now, the only one who can stay calm in this kind of situation I think is Tesla. The Tesla Model 3 isn't doing great, but the Model Y is still ranked second on the sales charts. Number 1 among pure EVs. So besides Tesla, who dares not to launch new cars now?
So are 540 new cars really new cars?
I hope they're not. You see, in the past, car development required comprehensive testing, like 2 summers and 2 winters. So a major redesign on a new platform, a brand new model, usually took 5 years. Then as development sped up, trying to save time, it went down to 36 months, which is 3 years. So a major redesign takes 3 years. A mid-cycle refresh, where the body structure changes, usually takes 24 months. A minor facelift, no structural changes, but significant updates to the interior and exterior. For a minor facelift, our entire development process, a full V model cycle, used to take 18 months. That's a year and a half. Now, development is often under 4 months. I hope it's not the major, mid, or minor changes I mentioned. Well, so the production, that is the validation cycle for this new model, has been shortened. Of course, the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology is also very anxious, issuing policies intensively since this year. Meaning, don't just use simulations. You must actually drive over 30,000 kilometers on real roads, trying to make the development and validation cycle more efficient. So I hope they can, introduce a new concept, which is micro-modification.
Right.
Meaning a development cycle of less than 10 months.
Large to micro sizes.
Large, medium, small, micro.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope these 500 plus new models are micro-modifications, because if they were the minor modifications of the past, launching 3 to 4 cars a day, I think there would be safety risks.
Yes.
So let's hope what they're launching are
tweaks.
After the R&D cycle is shortened, there are definitely corresponding quality risks.
In the first quarter, we actually talked about this issue regarding energy modes. specifically range extended ones. You made a bold prediction that range extended vehicles would continuously decline. And indeed, in the second quarter, the half-year data really reflected this. It showed such a situation, especially with representative ones.
With the improvement of charging technology, well, since last year, super fast charging has already reached the megawatt level.
Right?
This year, BYD launched flash charging, reaching 1.5 megawatts. Right, from kilowatts to megawatts, charging time is down to 5 or 9 minutes. So in this situation, the way of energy replenishment, the energy replenishment for pure electric vehicles, that is, charging might be more reasonable than range extension. So what problem does range extension bring? It can only be driven when there's both gas and electricity. The range extended way is different from plug-in hybrids. Plug-in hybrids can run on either gas or electricity, but range extended ones need both. Relying solely on electricity with power but no gas, the range isn't as good as pure electric. And with gas but no power, the fuel consumption is high and the economy is poor. A while after we finished talking last quarter, a few days later was the launch of XPeng's GX, and then you see He Xiaopeng mention two unexpected things. Well, he originally thought range extension would bring sales, but in the end he said the proportion of pure electric
range extension
exceeded the range extension.
Right, range extension is a transitional product. You just mentioned XPeng, but then there's the more representative Xiaomi. That Xiaomi car...
Isn't it launching soon?
Yes, exactly, and Pengcheng is also a range extended one.
The thing is, the timing of its release wasn't quite right. It was launched just as the market share for range extended vehicles was rapidly falling. It was launched right into that trap. But I think Pengcheng has an impact that you just have to admire. Xiaomi Auto's product definition capability, well, it's because of this. The large six-seater, the 9 Series cars are about the concept of home. In 140 years of automotive history, it's the first to use extra long rails to create a home-like layout for the family. What surprised me most was that they used floor plans to promote a car. You probably saw that in the media. It's the first time you've seen that in media promotion, right? That diagram, it showed 1 seat, 2 seats, 3 seats, the whole family, 4 floor plans.
Right.
So 4 different scenarios shown as 4 floor plans.
Their product definition is strong for Xiao.
Emmy, I think what I admire most is their product definition and marketing
capability. So regarding this Pengcheng product, this range extended product, what's your feeling?
From a technical standpoint, it's a bit of a drawback, especially since Xiaomi didn't launch a pure electric version this time. So I think Xiaomi should catch up quickly. Pengcheng needs a pure electric version besides the range extended one. And its pure electric version must support super fast charging. So isn't it a real test for them whether or not they should join BYD's Flash Charge Alliance? FAW has already joined BYD's alliance. Now, if you want to set up super fast charging yourself, you have to build it yourself. Li Auto did it, XPeng did it, Zeekr did it, right? And then they've set up super fast charging and battery swapping, right? So the issue is whether you're going to build this infrastructure yourself. It's a tough decision for Xiaomi. I think this might be why they didn't do a pure electric version. If you make a pure electric car without super fast or flash charging, is there any point? It wouldn't be competitive. So I think the good thing about BYD this time is that their flash charging can be shared with third parties. So why not just join BYD's Flash Charge Alliance like FAW did and then launch a pure electric model? And to make up for the technical shortcomings in the product definition.
We just talked a lot about pure electrics and the data from the first half of the year. Overall, the domestic market is down 21%, but the share of new energy vehicles has risen above 60%. Does that mean there's really no hope for gas cars?
It's like this, you see, actually, we were quite panicked about new energy vehicles in the first quarter of this year.
Right.
New energy vehicle penetration fell in Q1.
Yes.
Why did it go up in the second quarter? Well, the Americans helped out. The war drove up oil prices and naturally gasoline prices followed. Then the export market for new energy vehicles opened up. The biggest winner was probably BYD. Foreign markets started accepting new energy because gas was too expensive. And in the domestic market, those who could buy electric cars made the switch. In the second quarter, the penetration rate rose after falling in the first quarter. It had actually dropped from over 60% last year to the 50s in the first quarter. Then in the second quarter, it reached 63% in the domestic market. So, for new energy vehicles, I think the increase in market share is due to improved charging and secondly, the help from the Americans. They pushed up oil prices. The second reason I think pure gas cars will be phased out is pollutant emissions. Europe and China are now at stage 6. According to the original plan for pollutant emissions, Europe is about to enter stage 7. China is usually 1 to 2 years behind Europe, and stage 7 will be very difficult. So today, only China is firm in promoting electrification and new energy because of China's energy structure. China is strong in electricity but weak in oil, as 72% of its oil is imported. So from that perspective, I think the ultimate automotive product. Pure gas cars are indeed finished. For example, I think it's like this: electricity and oil. We must stick to a two-pronged approach. Pure electric cannot replace the engine or pure gas cars. But my point just now was that hybrids can replace pure gas.
Gas cars.
Right? With such good hybrids available, why would you buy a pure gas car?
True.
Because all the advantages of gas cars can be integrated into small battery hybrids, while the emission issues and the high fuel consumption issues
Can all be overcome.
it overcomes at least half of them.
Yes.
Fuel consumption drops from 8 to 10 liters per 100 kilos to
4 liters.
3 to 4 liters. What reason is there not to buy one?
Mm,
So from this perspective, regarding electrification, besides original new energy, we might add hybrids. So I think we need a two-pronged approach with oil and electricity. In the Chinese market, following the map, I'm looking at the Huhuanyong line. I mentioned this concept once before.
concept.
The Huhuanyong line.
Mhm.
The area below the Huhuanyong line is all suitable for electric cars. Below that line is where 95% of China's population lives. Secondly, because of the high population density below the line, the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure is good. And the power facilities, the power infrastructure is also good. South of the Huhuanyong line, winter temperatures generally don't drop below minus 30 degrees. Yeah, even in the northeast. Heilongjiang, well, most of Heilongjiang is north of the Huhuanyong line, but Harbin is actually south of it. For pure EVs, look at Harbin. There's already a significant number of pure electric BYD cars operating as ride-hails and taxis there. So, south of the Huhuanyong line, it's rarely below minus 30. When BYD launched flash charging at the Beijing Auto Show this year, you could see they demonstrated that at normal temperatures, it charges in 5 minutes and reaches full in 9. At minus 30 degrees, it just takes 3 more minutes, so they can handle minus 30. I think everywhere south of the Huhuanyong line is suitable for EVs. Like us living in Shanghai, in the Yangtze River Delta, this region is perfect for new energy vehicles. Pure electrics fully meet the requirements, but why do about 20% of people still buy gas cars? We've actually asked about this. People buying gas cars in Shanghai and the Yangtze River Delta are worried about what you just mentioned, battery fires. But the new national standard should ease those fears, specifically for power batteries and storage batteries. The safety standard took effect on July 1st. The simplest way to interpret this new national standard is just one sentence. No fires allowed. Thermal runaways allowed, but catching fire is not, so the new standard might, to some extent, improve the overall safety of power batteries and eliminate the user's fear of the risk of electric vehicle fires. Actually, the fire rate for EVs is close to that of gas cars. The US is mostly gas cars, right? Well, the annual car fire rate in the US is actually quite similar to ours, which is 0.4 per 10,000 kilometers, or 4 to 5 cars per 100,000.
So 4 or 5 in 100,000.
4 in 100,000, or 0.4 to 0.5 per 10,000. The US and China are about the same. So about 10,000 cars burn a year, both gas and electric. Of course, EVs are new, and people fear new things more. Secondly, battery fires are a real problem because current firefighting methods are ineffective against them. So many EVs just burn to the ground. Even a fire extinguisher won't help. That's why this new national standard, I think it can improve the safety of these power batteries to a certain degree. So for users south of the Huhuanyong line, we'll see if things change as more cars meeting the new standard hit the road. Once the fire risks of power batteries are reasonably controlled, the entire area below the Huhuanyong line can use electric vehicles, but for the upper part, I think we still need gas cars. As I said, in the area above the Huhuanyong line, winters can reach minus 40 degrees, just or even lower extreme temperatures. That's really tough. So I think the final product mix might be half electric and half gas, but in China, it might be a 70-30 split. China might be 70% electric and 30% gas. Foreign markets might be the reverse, 70% gas and 30% electric. That's likely the layout.
You just mentioned the issue of financial reports. Indeed, many companies are now issuing their forecasts. Some companies have indeed issued warnings of projected losses. So after all these years of talking about consolidation, is it finally happening now that car companies are seeing large-scale losses?
We've been crying wolf for 3 years now, and today the wolf might actually be here. The US also had hundreds of car factories back then. Then by the early 80s, there was overproduction, right? Followed by consolidation. After consolidation, only the big three remained: GM, Ford, and Chrysler. From over 100 down to 3. And look, it stayed stable for 40 years. Then came the 2009 financial crisis, and Chrysler couldn't operate independently anymore. Chrysler went bankrupt and was eventually consolidated into Stellantis. Of course, later on, a new force emerged in the US: Tesla, forming a new trio of American giants. So even a market as big as the US, with 15 to 16 million cars a year, only has 3 major players, right? As we analyzed, the global auto market is a zero-sum game. If you take a bigger bite, someone else gets less. Yes, and given China's current passenger car capacity, how could it possibly operate at 100%? Our utilization rate can't reach 100%. So the problem for companies now is exactly that, which is some leading companies might lack capacity, but those lacking it absolutely should not expand. Meanwhile, most companies might only have 20 to 30% utilization, so consolidation is crucial. The US already went through this once before. But when it comes to capacity consolidation, it might be harder in China due to the role of local governments and state-owned assets. Today, everyone knows consolidation is needed. The MIIT and NDRC encourage it. The MIIT even floated the idea of keeping only 15 out of 71 companies, right? This should be the consensus. Well, what was said at the Chongqing Forum was even more unofficial. Since these big shots are right in the middle of it, I think they feel more pessimistic. Those big shots at the Chongqing Forum believe only 5
companies will remain.
Well, this whole thing is quite difficult.
It is.
But look at what are the local governments doing?
There's tax revenue and employment.
Well, the thing is, after all, the auto industry is currently the only 10 trillion yuan industry. After real estate collapsed, cars became the sole pillar of local economies. So in this situation, would local governments be willing to let go? That's why consolidation is so hard. Everyone knows it should happen, but how?
Right, the wolf is indeed at the door. But there really is a huge difficulty in consolidation. You just mentioned that based on the American experience, it would eventually consolidate into 3 companies. At the Chongqing Forum, some big shots said it might be 5. Regardless of the number, what would the profile of these surviving companies look like?
The ones that can become the centers of consolidation are those to whom others give their production capacity. These 5 to 10 centers that remain will be the 5 to 10 hubs. What's their profile? Let's not name names yet. If you look at the financial reports, you can pretty much see it. There really are only 5 to 10. So without naming names, let's look at the profile. First, in the auto industry, mass production is king. Production and sales volume have always been the core of the rankings. Looking at it now, 2 million units, an annual production of 2 million units is something we mentioned a long time ago, right? Yes, exactly. 2 or 3 years ago, we mentioned this. An annual production of 2 million units is a must. Relying on technology, on high tech, just look. Even a giant like Tesla, when its annual production fell below 2 million units, its second quarter earnings turned negative. Ceres, known for its Huawei high tech, also saw its second quarter report turn negative as well. Without sufficient industrial scale and enough annual production and sales support, I don't think any amount of high tech can sustain a car company. So I think the first part of the profile is
2 million units.
2 million units is a hard requirement.
2 million units, that's about 5 or 6 companies.
Currently, those with annual production and sales over 2 million in China won't exceed 10 companies.
It's just like SEC, right?
We have BYD and also SAIC, for example.
Geely,
Chery, FR, BYD, SAIC Motor, and Great Wall Motor.
4.
Dongfeng, and then Chang'an. Chang'an makes it 6.
6.
That's 6, right? Exactly. So I think that's probably where those big shots got the number 5 from. So 2 million units is necessary. Secondly, the auto industry is at this. It's also particularly sensitive to new technologies. So the second profile is the intelligence of smart cockpits and smart driving. This hybrid, plug-in hybrid, electrification based on these three types of vehicles, including pure electric. I think for this technology, only manufacturers with controllable technology will be able to survive.
Or those with a certain technological lead.
Controllable.
It
doesn't focus on self-development, but it must be controllable. So regarding current controllability, like BYD uses full self-development, right? So self-development is naturally controllable. Then the second type is AITO and Huawei. Yes, exactly that kind. A very tight integration. Well, like Chery, they use their suppliers quite reasonably. So in this regard, I think it must at least be controllable. This, of course, whether you use self-development or a strong binding approach. That's just a method, yes, well. So the second part of the profile is core technology for new energy intelligence. Then electrification concentrated on 3 vehicle types, smart cockpits and smart driving, and then a gradual optimization of the electronic architecture. The third one, I think, is internationalization. Because no leading company in the world relies on a single market, on a single domestic market. The automobile is a global product, yes. Well, and looking at China's production capacity now, for one, compared to those foreign giants, the cost-performance ratio of Chinese cars is already clearly leading, as we analyzed before, even without entering the US market. Even if it's hard to enter the Japanese and Korean markets, there are still 25 million units outside, while the total Chinese passenger car market is only 25 million a year now, and it's declining. So in this case, it's for those who survive this round of domestic consolidation to be the central enterprise that survives. It must be the one merging others rather than being merged, which requires internationalization capability.
So the ability to excel in both domestic and international markets.
Yes.
Is there a fourth one?
The fourth one, I
think, since cars are so hard to sell now, is it marketing?
Marketing capability. Marketing has indeed become the automobile industry's primary competitiveness. The primary competitiveness, I'd even say it's the number one. Because no matter how good the tech is, you have to sell it. You must sell it. And that's marketing power has indeed grown now because the industrial foundation is very solid. So building a car isn't too difficult anymore. So from a technical perspective, not to mention the 70 plus companies still alive, even those that went bankrupt last year didn't have weak technology. Was WM Motors' car bad? I don't think it was that bad, especially Neta, in terms of both electrification and intelligence. GUA is following Tesla quite closely in terms of intelligence.
Yes.
So it's not bad. Take Hi-Fi, which went under. That car still had its own unique features among luxury cars.
Right. None of them are bad.
Hi-Fi really made the best car doors.
Indeed.
So their underlying technology really isn't bad, but I think they ultimately failed in their product marketing. One major issue is cash flow, and the other is simply a lack of marketing power. So if you want to survive right now, it's just not the time to be focusing on making money. Companies need to consolidate first before they can possibly turn a profit.
So which companies are representative of having strong marketing power?
When we talk about strong marketing power, I'd have to say that Chery's approach is really standing out.
Overseas marketing.
Interactive marketing, both domestically and abroad. Look at the auto shows for 3 years running. Hasn't Chery been constantly engaging these foreigners?
Yes.
Often 3,000 or 4,000 people. And after the Beijing Auto Show, they grandly chartered a high-speed train to Wuhu. This showed overseas dealers, since they always say China is about personal connections and you're only competitive if you have good government relations, right? This event showed them that Chery can get things done in China. Then domestically, people see that foreigners praise Chery, so they figure the cars must be good. So in terms of marketing power, Chery does the best job with this international and domestic interaction. And of course, for Xiaomi, we mentioned their product definition and marketing capabilities earlier. So from this perspective, marketing power and cash flow are what I think will allow survival. In my vision, I can think of these 4 profiles. First, you need a capacity of 2 million units a year as a base. Second, cutting-edge tech is essential, specifically in electric and smart tech. Third, you must excel both at home and abroad. You can't just rely on the Chinese market. And fourth, you need certain cash flow support and sufficient marketing.
Speaking of these 4 profiles, actually for this wave of new forces, whether it's NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, or others, they might be a bit weaker. So for them and other car companies, what is their way out?
For NIO, their moat is precisely in the aspect people comment on the most, battery swapping. In this category, if people accept the concept because swapping has its benefits, but if problems arise, it's hard for the ecosystem to form. It burns through cash a bit fast, but if users accept battery swapping, it actually has many advantages. So their moat is battery swapping.
Yes. Well, we just talked about deep cultivation and electrification as a direction for them. As for intelligence, which company might also be one that's not on that list but can still make things work relatively well?
When it comes to the intelligence aspect, I think the difficulty is even greater. Because looking at it now, Tesla is fine. This is primarily because it currently holds a sufficiently high market value.
Right.
Huawei should also be fine. It has a full industry chain in intelligent connectivity, from chips to cloud computing, and for cars in recent years. Jiejin, right? Jingjie, both models should have been fully integrated across the board. It should be able to keep going, though it mostly needs to improve its relationships with the original equipment manufacturers.
Partnerships.
Yes, partnerships, but the issue of moving from assisted driving to fully autonomous driving it should be fine. Now, BYD needs to leverage the advantages brought by electric power. As for intelligence, they launched a self-driving accident liability coverage this year, but their self-driving capabilities haven't been fully realized yet. But at least their marketing approach for self-driving.
And their resolve.
There's another way out, for example, because what's critical for cars now are those companies whose financial statements are still in the red. Of course, Tesla's second quarter financial report turned negative, prices dropped, and the stock fell. Ceres's second quarter report also went negative, and its stock price fell. I'm not too worried about that, because it's a leading company in intelligence after all. Looking at the market and the stock exchange now, people are immediately buying the dip. But for NIO, XPeng, and Li Auto, for those, I think, the probability of their finances turning positive is very low. So they still need a lot of financing. Now, when we look at NIO, we just mentioned that their unique battery swapping model certainly has its clear benefits for users. But its biggest, most glaring drawback is the massive cash investment required and the constant pressing need for continuous funding to keep it running. If NIO actually had a massive $1 trillion market cap, just like Tesla does today, well, there would be absolutely no hesitation in scaling this up, would there? All those advantages could be fully realized.
Maybe.
But what happens when its market value is falling? Where does the cash come from? One reason to survive now is that the automotive industry is no longer the darling of capital. So when He Xiaoping appeared recently, he was basically promoting robots and eVTOLs more. Of course, cars are still the largest part of his current output. Then a few days ago at the Shanghai World Artificial Intelligence Conference, you could see that XPeng was showcasing that robot. That's why he even removed the word motors from the company name. Physical AI is the hottest topic right now. So pivoting to physical AI, continuing to raise funds through intelligent robots and low-altitude aircraft for the low-altitude economy, since cars no longer have that fundraising capacity, this might be a path. XPeng Motors and He Xiaoping are clearly taking this path, and Li Auto actually wants to follow it too.
Next, let's talk about some predictable technological changes in the second half of the year or the near future, like solid-state batteries or electronic architecture.
I think for the foreseeable changes in the second half of this year, since pure electric vehicles are rising in large numbers, meaning their market share is increasing significantly. Yes, the issue of pure EVs driving at high speeds. And the problem of the sharp drop in driving range must be solved. Right. So whether it's using variable flux motors or adding a 2-speed gearbox, well, I think both of these paths are worth exploring.
Right.
So one is improving motor technology, and the other is bringing in traditional gearbox technology, because after all, high-speed driving is something that often
It happens quite often.
happens. And as the user base grows,
This problem must be solved.
yeah, I think it's predictable for the second half of the year, or by next year at the latest. Even in the latter half of this year, we'll see variable flux technology, because BYD has already applied for public notice, so it should be coming out, right? And then next year, will some car companies try 2-speed gearboxes, because the technical barrier for 2-speed gearboxes themselves isn't that high. It should be quite easy once they decide to do it. Secondly, regarding the electronic architecture, cabin driving integration might not happen that quickly. So for the smart technology sector, the most important thing right now is still to achieve autonomous driving as soon as possible.
Right.
that is July 1st, 2027,
Mm-hmm.
that's when mandatory standards for combined assisted and autonomous driving systems take effect.
Implemented.
So, as a leading company in autonomous driving,
Mm-hmm.
you must move from assisted driving toward full autonomous driving.
We also predicted last time in the first quarter that we'd see fully autonomous cars by 2027 at the earliest. There's another trend, possibly in the battery sector. What are some foreseeable trends there, right?
Well, that would be in the second half of this year.
Mm-hmm.
If we speculate,
Mm-hmm.
then what can be mass produced for cars now is definitely semi-solid state, which is liquid solid, right? Because for all solid state lithium batteries, the problem of high impedance at the solid interface still can't be solved. So semi-solid state is a solution. Because semi-solid state adds 10 to 15% liquid electrolyte, of course, the separator still needs to be there. So semi-solid state lithium batteries are developing very fast this year. Looking at the current situation of various companies, by the second half of this year or next year at the latest, there should be mass-produced cars equipped with semi-solid state batteries. Semi-solid state might be used in our cars, and then to a certain extent, once semi-solid state and all solid state lithium batteries. So production capacities are very mature, will gradually phase out liquid lithium batteries. Secondly, I think we should also pay attention to sodium batteries. For sodium batteries, one thing is that sodium salt, mineral resources are very abundant in China, so the price won't stay high. But lithium carbonate mineral resources in China are still insufficient. We still have to rely on imports. So the price of lithium carbonate fluctuates up and down. It's unstable, right? So sodium batteries are also worth looking forward to, definitely worth it. Sodium batteries might mainly be used for energy storage, electric bicycles, I think with the development of sodium batteries. It'll also develop like the passenger car sector, so 12 volt, 48 volt. So these two sodium battery packs are actually expected to appear in this specific passenger car model. It is quite a significant development, as this technology is finally starting to make its way into the mainstream automotive market.
Right, these are all things we'll see in the second half of the year or in the near future. Right, okay, so our communication for today, this talk ends right now. Okay, thank you, Teacher Zhu.